At just 20 years old, Emily's own family cast her aside. They mocked her weight, called her a burden, and sent her away to live with a poor farmer as punishment. But what they thought was a cruel joke turned out to be the greatest blessing of her life. Before we dive into this emotional story of rejection, kindness, and second chances, make sure to subscribe to our channel, where every story reminds you that hope can be found in the most unexpected places. The grand dining hall glowed with golden chandeliers. Silverware clinked, wine poured into crystal glasses, and the air buzzed with laughter. At the far corner of the table sat Emily, just 20 years old, shifting nervously in her chair. She wasn't like the others. Her cousins flaunted designer dresses and sharp suits, their hair styled perfectly. Emily wore a modest dress, her hands fidgeting in her lap, wishing she could disappear. When she reached for a dish of roasted chicken, her trembling hand slipped. The plate tumbled to the floor, shattering. The room fell silent. Then came the laughter. "She can't even hold a plate," one cousin sneered. Her aunt snapped, "You embarrass this family every time you breathe." Then her uncle smirked, his voice dripping with cruelty. "I know what to do with her. Let's send her to that poor farmer down the road. Let her work for her meals. Maybe then she'll finally lose some weight." The table roared with laughter, the kind that stung like knives. Emily's face burned red, her eyes filled with tears. She whispered under her breath, "Why am I never enough?" That very night, her suitcase was shoved into her arms. No goodbyes, no hugs. Just a car ride into the dark countryside, exiled by her own family. The car pulled up to a modest farmhouse. The paint was faded, the wooden fence crooked, chickens pecked at the dirt yard. Emily gripped her suitcase, her heart pounding. The car door slammed, and the driver sped off, leaving her alone. She felt abandoned, discarded like trash. Then the front door creaked open. Out stepped a middle-aged man with rugged hands, weathered boots, and kind, steady eyes. His name was Thomas. He studied her for a moment, then smiled gently. "You must be Emily. Come in, child. You look exhausted." Emily hesitated. She expected harshness, maybe even ridicule. Instead, Thomas guided her inside and set a plate of warm bread and a glass of fresh milk in front of her. She blinked, confused. Why are you being kind to me?" she asked quietly. Thomas chuckled softly. "Because life is hard enough. Everyone deserves kindness, especially those who've been denied it." Tears blurred her vision. For the first time in years, someone spoke to her without cruelty. The house was small, but it felt warmer than any mansion she had ever known. The next morning, Emily woke to the sound of roosters crowing. The air was crisp, carrying the smell of hay. Thomas handed her a bucket. "Come on, Emily. The animals won't feed themselves." She tried carrying the heavy bucket, but it wobbled in her hands. Water splashed onto her dress, and within minutes she stumbled and fell into the mud. Frustrated, she buried her face in her hands. "I can't do this. I'm useless," she muttered. Thomas knelt beside her. His voice was calm but firm. "Strength doesn't come from getting it right the first time. It comes from refusing to give up." Day after day, Emily worked. She tripped, she failed, she cried, but she kept trying. And Thomas never mocked her. Instead, he encouraged her. Slowly, Emily grew stronger. She learned to feed the animals, plant seeds, carry firewood. She discovered she could cook hearty meals from the farm's harvest. She began laughing at her mistakes instead of crying. And one evening, as she looked at the sunset over the golden fields, she whispered, Maybe I am capable after all." For the first time in her life, Emily didn't feel like a burden. She felt like someone who mattered. One autumn evening, Emily noticed 3 men in expensive suits walking up the dirt path. They shook Thomas's hand firmly, speaking in hushed but urgent tones. "Mr. Thomas," one of them said, "with thousands of acres under your name, you could be one of the richest men in this state. Why do you insist on living like a poor farmer?" Emily froze. Thousands of acres? She clutched the wooden doorway, her heart racing. Later, when the men left, she turned to Thomas, wide-eyed. You're wealthy." Thomas smiled, wiping the dirt from his hands. "Yes, Emily. My family left me this land, but I've never needed riches to live. Wealth without kindness is worthless. A man can own the world and still be poor if his heart is empty." Emily's eyes filled with tears, not of sadness, but of admiration. This man, whom the world mocked as poor, was richer than her entire family. But what made him truly rich was his compassion. Months passed. Emily transformed before everyone's eyes. No longer timid and ashamed, she was strong, confident, radiant. When her relatives finally visited, they expected to find her broken and humiliated. Instead, they saw her standing tall beside Thomas, her eyes glowing with pride. Their smug smiles faded when they learned of Thomas's vast fortune. Her uncle stammered, "You mean, all this time?" Thomas interrupted, his voice calm but firm. "True wealth isn't in dollars. It's in kindness. It's in the way we treat one another." Emily stepped forward, her voice steady, her head held high. "You sent me here as punishment, but this was the greatest blessing of my life. Because here I found respect. I found kindness. And I finally found myself." Her relatives stood speechless. For the first time, Emily wasn't the family's joke. She was untouchable, strong, dignified, and free. Emily chose to stay on the farm, not for Thomas's hidden fortune, but because she had found her own. The farm became her sanctuary, a place where she grew, healed, and discovered her true worth. Sometimes the world's cruelest punishments are really destiny's greatest gifts, and sometimes the people who are cast aside are the ones destined to shine the brightest.